Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. It's a really international group here tonight. We have Spaniards, we have French. So me, I'm coming from German-speaking Zurich. Mais il y a plus de 20 ans, j'ai fait un stage ici à Paris. Et depuis, la banque n'existe plus et mon français n'a pas progressé beaucoup. Alors, pour éviter de vous faire souffrir, je vais continuer en anglais. So, thank you very much, Alejandro, for this opportunity. Alejandro and I, we met in Chicago for the first time. And there was a long line for the restaurant for the breakfast. And then this guy just comes next to me and he just speaks like in the restaurant. It's like, talks to me. He's like, do you think I could skip the line? I was just look at him and, being all Swiss about him. Like, what do you mean you want to skip the line? And he's like, my colleague is already in there. I think he's got a table. And I was like, how? Well, in that case, let's skip the line together. So, rest is history. Thank you very much, Alejandro, again for this opportunity. Tonight, I'm going to talk about a topic that has been very close to my heart, artificial intelligence. I was one of the very early adopters of generative AI. And I just, from the beginning, just discovered that sometimes AI wasn't as smart as it pretended to be. And that's why my presentation is called Artificial Intelligence. And that's also the title of my book that I wrote a while ago. But the story starts in 2019 in Seattle. So, quick show of hands. Who has seen one of these Amazon Go stores before? Okay, couple. Okay, not that many. So these Amazon Go stores, they were the big thing in 2019, and I was on a stopover in Seattle. So these shops, you can just walk in, you can grab whatever you want without having to scan anything, and you just walk out. And a couple of minutes later, the bill will show up on your phone. And back then, I was just amazed. I'm like, huh? How did they do that? So it was, I swear, I just grabbed some granola bars. I walked out, and just 2 minutes later, the bill was on my phone. So I was really impressed. And I was there with my husband, so he's looking very impressed here, um, grabbing those candies. Well, at least he was until I swapped his face with Ryan Gosling's because he didn't want me to show his face in public, so I upgraded it. Um, So we were like, wow, but if that's the future, right? So AI cameras that can pick up what you're taking in 5 years' time, there's no people anymore going to work in supermarkets, and we were a little bit concerned about that. But then 5 years later, in 2024, Amazon shuts down the whole thing, and I'm like, wait a minute, if the technology was so advanced, why kill it? So the truth is that AI didn't do the work at all. Behind the scenes was an army of over 1,000 employees in India, human intelligence, watching camera feeds and watching what you put into your pocket, and then just frantically typing your bill. So that was my aha moment. And Amazon wasn't alone with that, right? Just at the beginning of this year, heard of Builder AI? They claimed they had an agent that can code for you, right? Went bankrupt because, again, you guessed it, 700 Indian coders building the apps behind the scene. Remember Scale AI? It's founded by 22-year-old Alexander Wang. Well, then 22-year-old Alexander Wang got acquired by Meta this year for $14.8 billion. That's billion with a B. What did they do? Data labeling, right? But that's a fancy term for thousands and thousands of people in countries like Kenya drawing boxes around images. So data labeling that made scale AI so important and so successful was basically an army of people behind the scenes doing the work at very, very low wages. So every conference we hear, ladies and gentlemen, AI is going to take our jobs. AI is going to become more intelligent than we are. But if you, like me, have worked with smart technologies and you've been in the trenches, you just know that machines are sometimes not as smart as they pretend to be. Now, here's an inconvenient truth. There was a recent study of the MIT that said that 95% of all AI projects actually do not generate any ROI for companies. But then I ask myself, why do we hear about all these AI layoffs? Now let's look at the pointing case. This is a presentation of Philip Morris, and that's a slide that I took at the AWS conference back in Zurich just a couple of weeks ago. So Philip Morris, from 450 use cases, 8 survived. That's 1.8%. It's not even the 5% that you had on the previous slide. So why do CEOs then talk about, well, we laid off 27,000 people, Amazon laid off 20,000 people just a couple of years ago because of AI, stating that AI was the cause. Just imagine you're the CEO of a company and you're getting a pressure from the board to perform. If you're telling the board, well, you had to let go 10% of your staff because you didn't meet the targets, because the economic climate was cooling, right? Then you probably get the finger. But if you tell the board, well, I fired 10,000 people and replaced them with AI, wow, you're going to be the hero, right? Maybe even get a salary raise. So the truth is, many companies have tried. Klarna, 2 years ago, fired people from their call centers. And they thought, the phones would just answer themselves. What happened was they had a $40 billion fall in valuation and a very messy rehiring campaign at the beginning of this year. Well, you would think that these kind of cases would be a cautionary tale for other companies not to go down that line, right? Wrong. Just 2 months ago, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia went down the same rabbit hole, fired dozens of call center agents, and had to rehire them only 1 month later. It's like firing your chefs because you bought a fancy new microwave that promised you gourmet meals. So sometimes I really ask myself, maybe the problem is not artificial intelligence. Maybe it's human intelligence. So, does anyone know this young man? His name is Leopold Aschenbrenner, ex-OpenAI researcher, 23 years old. Wrote a paper called Situational Awareness. Ever heard of it? Predicted AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, in 2027. What is AGI? Judgment, right? The day that machines are going to be more intelligent than we are. He raised 1.5 billion 23-year-old, yes. 1.5 billion with the B for his hedge fund, just based on that paper. So why are people betting so much money onto fever dreams? AGI, $3 trillion, ladies and gentlemen. $3 trillion have flown into the AI industry so far. Sometimes just chasing a fever dream that might never come true. $3 trillion in investment, 50 billion so far in revenues. Do the maths. And here is an inconvenient truth again. A lot of the VC fever dreams actually never came true. Flying cars, still circling the runway since 1917. Nuclear fusion, 30 years away for 70 years. Space colonization, I really feel bad for these astronauts. Hydrogen economy, still missing in action. Blockchain, a classic solution searching for a problem. Same thing with AI, huh? Sometimes. Self-driving cars still needs humans behind the wheel. And does anyone even remember the metaverse? What happened to that? So let's talk a little bit about artificial general intelligence. And let me just give you a couple of very real obstacles why it's going to be a real challenge for it to happen in 2027. First of all, the exponential energy need, right? To generate more and more efficient chips, you will have to put more and more exponentially energy into producing them. We need more data centers, more space. So there's physical limitations in building these data centers. And we know they are consuming an absurd amount of energy and water. And then let's go back to the data labeling. Remember? Before, there were some people in Kenya maybe just drawing circles around this is a dog, this is a cat. It's not that easy anymore, right? Now that we have more sophisticated AI, you will need medical staff in labeling cancer scans. You need mechanical engineers to scan self-driving cars sensors data. And then you'll need data engineers and analysts to take all of that unstructured data and make it readable for the machines. And that's, I can tell you, is a very time-consuming task. And that's probably what a lot of companies are underestimating. And I'm very looking forward to the panel because that's probably going to be one of the topics that the panelists can explain. So, ladies and gentlemen, relax. Judgment Day is not going to happen in 2027. That's my prediction against Mr. Aschenbrenner's prediction and his hedge fund. Unfortunately, I didn't raise 1.5 billion for a hedge fund, but maybe we can start today. What do you think? Okay, so what are the real game changers? If you're talking about VC fever dreams, the funny thing is that many of the real game changers, they never appeared in any pitch deck. Think about it. YouTube used to be a video dating site. Amazon started as a bookstore. Today, they are redefining the influencer economy and e-commerce and cloud. Anyone saw these words pop up in any pitch deck before? I didn't. Social media. I don't think that word ever popped up in any pitch deck before it actually existed. Airbnb. Two broke guys who wanted to make a buck on the side and rented out their place on an air mattress. And Uber, founder was frustrated because he couldn't hail a taxi on a cold winter's night. And that's how these companies came into place and redefined what we call the sharing economy. Has anyone thought of that before? I doubt it. So that was it from my side. Thank you very much. As I said before, I have written a book, and if you are interested, I have some book plates today. And if you want to get the book, I can give you a signed book plate that you can take home. And if you order the book, you can stick it in your book. So thank you very much. And now I would like to invite the panel on stage. Thank you.